do know that youth unemployment, not just in South Africa, but across the major economies, is now a ticking time bomb. What's being proposed as a solution?
Well, really, the study that we conducted on behalf of the Branson Centre of Entrepreneurship was not immediately to propose the solution, but identify what the issues are. And I think there are a number of really interesting findings. I think, firstly, there is creativity in abundance amongst South African youth, but often there's a lack of understanding in terms of exactly what it takes to start a new business. Some people think that having a good idea is all it takes. But I think what's been identified in our study is that way beyond just a good idea and some money to make it happen. A lot of it is the absence of skills development and mentorship, and really a real life experience of what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Right. So I think certainly the government, like many governments in the rest of Africa, see small businesses as the future of the economy, and they're trying to do what they can to put in place the assistance. But sometimes that assistance is mired in red tape, and a lot of the young people who don't have that experience of going through those systems end up being frustrated as a result.
Okay, we'll talk about these various elements that you've referred to. Now, obviously, the solution that's being put forward is entrepreneurship. The question is, do young South Africans have the wherewithal to start their own business? I mean, only about 8% in this research said they were planning to start a business in the next year. Others were sitting on great ideas, but just weren't prepared to take the risk to lead them to fruition.
Well, that's right. I think when you talk about the wherewithal to start the business, obviously the wherewithal has a financial component. So a lot of young people don't have the financial support or backing to start that new business, and a lot of them do think that maybe they should be looking to get a job initially, firstly because they realize that they don't necessarily have the business experience and skills. But I think importantly, yes, only 8% said they were going to start a business this year, but a much higher percentage, nearly 50% of people, said that at some stage they did believe that within the right amount of experience and a little bit of money under their belt, that they would want to start a business. So I think there is this sort of latent entrepreneurship amongst a vast majority of the youth out there, but there is this acknowledgement from a lot of them that they're not equipped just yet. So I don't think we must write off the young entrepreneurs, the young Patrice Mosepes of the future just yet. But there is at least, it's a good sign that they realize that they need more skills, more wherewithal, as you say, to be able to make a success of their businesses.
I mean, earlier on you presented the major limitations being access to capital or some sort of collateral, as well as expertise and skills. The president's launched a job fund, which effectively is directed at encouraging businesses to hire young people and wages being subsidized. But is enough attention being given to creating some sort of an SME entrepreneurship fund for young people who want to start a business?
Well, I think, again, the government is trying, but I think the experience that a lot of the young people that we spoke to felt, as I mentioned earlier, that there was, to actually engage with these government-based institutions, there was a lot of red tape, that a lot of the people that they were dealing with, through no fault of their own, are not entrepreneurially minded. You know, ultimately they work for the state, and I think there was a sense that government should stick to funding entrepreneurship, but I think the youth are looking to the private sector and existing business to try and equip them with the skills and the mentorship, which is so vital. So I think the government obviously is very well intentioned, but I think there are some stumbling blocks in the delivery of that intention to help young people start those businesses.
This idea of mentorship, are there enough incubator programs? I know Richard Branson has one in Nigeria, Tony Elumelu started one, but is enough being done? It seems like there's just too few and far between.
That's right, and I think whilst the youth said, you know, it's up to private enterprise to provide those mentorship programs, they still gave them a pretty mediocre score in terms of what they're actually doing, and I think that just highlights the need for more initiatives like the Branson Centre, where, and I think a key thing to point out here is the issue of role models and mentors. You know, so many people look up to, they know of the Richard Bransons and the Oprah Winfreys of this world, and they know of the Tokyo Sequales and the Patrice Mossepis. But what they really need is somebody that they can actually engage with, who's walked the path, who they have access to. And obviously somebody like Richard Branson can't read everybody's business plan, but at least by funding something like the Branson Centre, they're able to provide very hands-on practical guidance to the young entrepreneurs who've shown some propensity to make it work. So the short answer to your question is no, not enough is being done across the board within private enterprise to support young entrepreneurs, but I think there are pockets where some real strides are being taken, and I think that's where we need to focus.
Let me ask you a very controversial question, and I'm going to use a bit of latitude here, but I'm trying to be sensitive. You know, they say that invention thrives in an environment of scarcity, and Africa is a continent of a lot of scarcity. And yet we're not seeing inventions, we're not seeing innovations by way of people coming up with solutions to our problems. And this is where entrepreneurs play a part. What is holding us back as Africans? Because in many ways it's almost as though we're just not predisposed to starting our own business in the way in which the Japanese have done, for instance, in the way in which the Americans have done.
Look, I think firstly, to dispel that myth, I would strongly argue that, we see it every day, that there is huge creativity, and absolutely in the face of adversity, innovation is born, and it's being born on the streets of Africa every day. The hard part is translating those creative ideas and putting in place the support structures to actually convert them from just being a good idea into an actual business. I think you look at what's happening in Kenya, where there's a whole new set of entrepreneurial opportunities being built around the mobile space. And I think in South Africa we certainly don't lack for creativity. Soweto is really emerging as a creative entrepreneurial hub, but it's just the systems, the support, the funding that isn't necessarily there to get it over the tipping point where it becomes a viable business. So the creativity is there, it's just the other stepping stones aren't necessarily there.